Greetings, everyone. I decided to create this video because I'm afraid that not enough people are taking this virus seriously, and we need to. I want you all to stay ahead of the curve. If you remember, it was back on January 25th when I first told you all that I was afraid. I said, God forbid, but I'm thinking that this might turn into a pandemic back then. And then exactly a month later, on February 26th, I told you all through our Ash Wednesday service that I was pretty much convinced that this was already a pandemic and that you all needed to stock up on food and supplies. So again, I want us to stay ahead of the curve. So I'm going to share with you some misconceptions, some myths that I've seen, and also share some suggestions of what you can do to protect yourself and your family from this virus. Okay, so first myth I want to tackle is this. COVID-19 is not as bad as the regular flu. I've seen this again and again and again. So is there any truth to that? A lot of people are saying, you know what? The death rate of the regular flu has killed more people than this has. So why are we making such a big deal out of this? Why are we shutting down the whole country if this is not killing as many people as a regular flu? And there are others out there who have a whole number of different conspiracies. I've read a whole bunch of stuff on the internet, and some of it's just absolutely ridiculous, okay? I'm not going to get into all that conspiracy, but a lot of people there believe this is some sort of big plot from one world government to try to control us all. It's ridiculous, but I'm not even going to address that. I'm going to just deal with facts, okay, and things that you can look up on your own. So the first question is this worse than a regular seasonal flu? And once again, we're going to look at the facts. So I went to the CDC website. Here's a link. You can look at this on your own. In fact, you're going to find these links on the YouTube description of this video, okay? So you can look this up on your own. So I went to the website to see, what is the death rate of the regular flu? And I decided to look up the last 5 years. So let me share with you the last 5 years. So this is from 2014 to 2015 season. The death rate was 0.17%. That year, approximately 30.1 million people got this flu, and there were 51,000 people who died. Okay, so that gives you a death rate of 0.17%. And then from 2015 to 2016, about 23.5 million people got the flu, and out of those, 22,705 people died. A death rate of 0.096%. And then from 2016 to 2017, approximately 29.2 million people got the flu, and of those, 38,230 people passed away. A death rate of 0.13%. And then 2017 and 2018, 44.8 million people got the flu, and 61,000 people died. This had a higher death rate of 0.136%. So this is higher than most seasonal flu. And then last year, from 2018 to 2019, we have about 35.5 million people got the flu, and 34,000 people passed away. A death rate of 0.096%. So again, of those 5 years, the worst year was between 2017 and 2018, 0.136% death rate. So how does this compare to the COVID-19 death rate? Is it similar? Is it comparable? Well, let's look at some of the different stats from this, okay? At the low end, some people are saying the death rate is going to be approximately 1%. And this guy went on to say 1.2%. But Dr. Anthony Fauci said he thinks it's going to be a 1% death rate. The World Health Organization in early March said that the death rate they suspect is going to be at 3.4%, which is pretty high. But that's what they were saying, 3.4%. So I decided to look up yesterday. This is as of yesterday, March 31st, facts. And this is around 6:30 or so in the evening that I looked at the numbers. So this was the death rate for China was 4%. Spain, 9%, pretty high. Italy, 12%. That's the reason why they're having so much death and chaos in Italy, because they have a high death rate over there. And then for the USA, you divide up 3,850 deaths with the overall total cases of 187,321, you get a death rate of 2.05%. Today, around 5 o'clock this evening, I decided to look it up again. It actually has gone up. It's gone up to 2.23%. So it's going up. A couple weeks ago, I looked it up. I think it was at 1%. So it's been going up as the days have gone by. So let's just stick with that 2%, okay? So how many people are going to get this COVID-19 virus? According to this article, it's anywhere between 70 million and 150 million people are going to get this virus, okay? The vast majority of people are not going to die. The vast majority of people are not going to die, okay? But that's the range. So if the death rate from this flu is at 1%, that's approximately 700,000 people who are going to die. If it's at 2%, which is pretty much the current rate right now for America, that translates to 1.4 million people who are going to die. If it's at the WHO organization's number, figures 3.4%, that translates to 2.3 million people who are going to die. That's a lot of people. When you compare that with the 2017-2018 season of only 61,000, it's a big number. If you go just at 1%, it's 11.5 times more deadlier than the 2017-2018 season at just 1%. Now, if you take the high number of 150 million people who get infected from this virus, at 1% death rate, that translates to 1.5 million people dead. At 2% death rate, it translates to 3 million people dead. And at 3.4%, it translates to 5.1 million people dead. That's a lot of people. Again, a lot more compared to the 2017-2018 season of 61,000 deaths. That's more than 20.45 times deadlier at 1% compared to the 2017-2018 season. So this is the reason why we need to take this seriously. How does that compare to the pandemic of 1918, the Spanish flu of 1918, where they're saying anywhere between 50 to 100 million people died? And in fact, I'm going to share with you a link, also my description, of a wonderful documentary from the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic. So if you look at the Americans who died during the Spanish flu of 1918, approximately 675,000 people died. That's more than all the Americans who died from World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Iraq War, and the Afghanistan War. 675,000 people. At the lowest rate, at 1%, with at the 70 million people, it's 700,000. So this is going to be probably even deadlier than 1918 flu. Well, what about the latest updates from the White House projects? They're saying, they're projecting anywhere between 100K and 240K people who are going to die from the flu. They're assuming that the death rate is going to be at 0.14%. 0.14%, not 1%, not 2%, not 3.4, just 0.14%. And that's assuming that everybody is following the guidelines of staying home. Everybody following the guidelines of being locked down. If everybody keeps the social distance, that's what they project, hopefully, that it would be. That's assuming that's 70 million people who are infected. Translates to 100,000 people dead. And if 170 million people get infected, it translates to 240,000 people dead. So that's where they get those figures. This is very optimistic numbers. Again, it's assuming that everybody follows the guidelines of being locked down in their homes and not getting out, not spreading it around. Very optimistic. Here's one chart. This is from one of the articles I read of why this is a lot worse than the regular flu season. So first thing, the RO number, that's the estimate of how many people you can infect with the virus. So a regular flu, you infect about 1.3 people. The COVID-19, you infecting 2 to 2.5 people with this virus. The incubation period for a regular flu is about 1 to 4 days before you show any symptoms. The COVID-19 virus, anywhere between 1 to 14 days before you show any symptoms, and you are also infecting other people. Even though yourself you're not showing any symptoms, you are automatically infecting other people. That's why it's so dangerous. And then the hospitalization rate, the regular flu, the people who will end up in a hospital, all the people who catch it is about 2% versus 19% for the COVID-19 virus. And that's why the hospitals are concerned that if you overwhelm the hospitals and they don't have enough beds, people are going to end up dying as a result of that. That's the reason why it's a big concern for hospitals across this nation and all over the world. And again, the fatality rate for regular flu is at 0.1% versus anywhere between 1 to 3.4%. So if it's at 1%, that makes it 10 times more deadlier than the regular flu. And if it's at 3.4%, that's 34 times more deadlier than the regular flu. That's usually why this is a big concern right now. That's why people who are in the know are concerned and are afraid. So according to this article, I think this headline summarizes it all. COVID-19 is not like the flu, not in the Dallas County, not anywhere in this nation, not anywhere around the world. We need to take it seriously. Myth number 2 that I want to tackle. Only old people need to worry about the COVID-19. If you're young and you're healthy, you got nothing to worry about. This is just an old man's disease. Well, tell that to a Tennessee woman who, her name is Eileen Tate, 21 years old. She was boasting and bragging on Twitter that, you know what, she was not going to take this seriously. She's going to do her own thing. She's going to have fun. She's young. Shortly after she posted that tweet, turns out she got the virus and, of course, was suffering because of it. Let me also share with you a quote from this article. This is from what's going on in Los Angeles. That the epidemic there is spreading like fire. Turns out, this is what one of the officials said in the article. She said that 42% of hospitalizations have involved people between the ages of 18 to 40 years old, and 39% involve individuals 41 to 65 years old. So approximately 50% or so are under the age of 50. This is not just an old person's disease. Here's another article which I also found quite informative. What's going on across the nation, right? Here's a quote from the article. According to the Centers for Disease and Control and Prevention, 29% of U.S. COVID-19 cases were people ages 20 to 44, and 5% were from those 19 and younger. In other words, over 1/3 of all the cases are under the age of 45, more than 1/3. We need to be taking this seriously. And then from the New York Times, let me show that quote right there. New CDC data shows that nearly 40% of patients sick enough to be hospitalized ended up in the hospital were between the ages of 20 to 54, 40%. But the risk of dying was significantly higher in older people, which is true. You're older, you have a greater chance of dying from this virus than if you're younger. And also people who are at risk. And that includes people who are diabetic, who have lung problems, heart disease, high blood pressure, smokers, and people with a compromised immune system. These are the ones that are most in danger of dying. But there's a lot of people in America who are diabetic or have heart disease. So again, another reason why we need to take this virus seriously. Going back to that young lady, 21-year-old, who at first did not take this seriously and then got very sick with it, let me share what she had to say as a result of getting the virus. She said this: "It feels like someone is sitting on my chest at all times. It's really hard to breathe. I cough until my throat has bled. While it may not be affecting you, you could be affecting someone's grandma or grandpa or aunt or uncle or sister." So in other words, if you're young and you get it, maybe you don't have any severe symptoms, but you could pass it on to somebody else who ultimately may be affected by it and ultimately may die because of it. So again, young people, please be cautious. Just stay away from crowds. Just stay home. Just stay home. Myth number 3, on the misconceptions people tend to have. They're saying this: by May, this should be all over with, and we can return back to our normal lives. You know what? Maybe this might be true, but maybe it may not be true. The CDC is saying, you know what? People can be expected to be exposed to this virus this year, throughout the whole year this year, up until 2021. There's another article from a federal agency saying, hey, this thing can last 18 months or more. So it's not necessarily going to go away during the summer. Here's a quote from the article. The nation could see multiple waves of the outbreak, possibly causing widespread shortages of key goods and potentially affecting the level of health care available to the public, the plan says, according to the New York Times. So what's the myth? The myth is, people think, well, when it gets hot and warm, this virus is going to die and go away. That's a false myth. It's not true. As a matter of fact, this is spreading throughout the nations of the world where it's hot and humid. Case in point, an example of Ecuador. At the time that this article was written, Ecuador is right now, at that time was in their summer. When it's winter over here in America, it's summer over there, and vice versa. So even though they were in the midst of their summer in Ecuador, a country in South America by the equator, in 1 week alone, they had 400 cases. 400 cases in 1 week. It's spreading throughout Latin America, spreading throughout Africa, and then spreading to other parts of the world where it's hot and humid. So we cannot take for granted that somehow this is going to disappear by the summer. It may diminish, it may get better, but it may not necessarily mean it's going to just disappear altogether and go away. And lessons from this can be learned from the 1918 epidemic, right? It turns out at that time, that virus, I think it was the H1N1 virus, was spreading throughout the world, and it continued to spread throughout the summer. In fact, and this is crucial, it even mutated during the summer. And the second time around, the second wave, it was even more deadlier than the first wave. In fact, there were some cities here in America who during the first wave during the spring of 1918, took it seriously, and they did all kinds of things to prevent people from getting it. They quarantined themselves, and then they became lazy in the second wave, thinking, we're okay now. Turns out it killed a lot more people in the end. Let me give you an example from India. What happened in India? It turns out they were spared during the spring of 1918 when this first began to spread all over the world. It arrived in India at the end of June of 1918, and then it spread like wildfire during the summer of that year. And then from there to the fall, it killed millions upon millions. Here's a quote from the article. In 1918, all it took was a few months, right, from the end of June to the fall of that year. It peaked around October of 1918. An estimated 10 to 20 million Indians died, a fifth of the global death toll, making India the worst hit country. The ghats along the river Ganga ran out of wood as the bodies piled up. It was that bad. So again, this spread in India during the summer of 1918 and continued through the fall of 1918. So they're saying that possibly, not that this will become a reality, but possibly there could be a second wave that could break out in the fall of this year. And this is the reason why we're not clear. When things get better around May or June, we're not cleared. We're not cleared. There could be a mutation, and there could be a second wave, and the second wave could be even deadlier than this first wave. So again, another reason why we need to take this seriously. So now let me show you some important tips, things that you can do for yourself to help yourself and your family, and things I've read since late January when I first began to investigate this virus. Foremost, everybody knows about washing their hands and staying away from people as far away as you can. But we need to take the shelter in place seriously. Across this nation, a lot of states, a lot of cities have this in place, but people are not taking it seriously. People out there are doing their business. Please stay home. This is the way we're going to be able to control this virus and keep the death rate at a lower level. Please follow the guidelines. Don't be out and about unless you really have to, unless it's an emergency, unless you really have to get food. Don't go out there. Just stay home. Just stay home. Now, there's a couple of things I discovered along the way that can help us, potentially help us stay healthy, develop an immune system, and maybe even fight this virus. There's a number of articles out there about vitamin C. In fact, in China, they were using vitamin C. They were injecting vitamin C into the sick patients out there with some mixed results. Here in America, in New York, they're using vitamin C, again, through injection, to treat some of the patients out there. And the data is not yet conclusive as to whether this is effective or not. But this is conclusive, and it has shown that vitamin C may reduce people being put in these ventilators, the time that they're being placed in these ventilators. And it can reduce them as much as 14%. So there's definitely some value of using vitamin C. Personally speaking, I'm taking about 1,000 milligram or 1 gram of vitamin C every single day, just to cover myself. There's also studies about vitamin D. In fact, this has been confirmed by science that vitamin D does protect people from colds and flu. In fact, it helps build immune system. Now, can this vitamin D can help lower your risk of catching COVID-19? There's no evidence that can do that. But there is evidence that can do this for you. Some research shows that having healthy levels of vitamin D, as well as taking a vitamin D supplement, can help keep your immune system healthy and may protect against respiratory illness in general. Of course, the best source of vitamin D is not supplements. It's just going out in the sun. So if you have a backyard, front yard, go out there in the sun. When the weather gets warm, go out there, hang on a wall for maybe 20, 30 minutes a day, just to get some natural vitamin D from the sun, which will build up your immune system. There's also been a lot of discussion on the internet about whether zinc is helpful or not. And I've seen pros and cons about this. Let me show you a quote from this article. Short-term oral zinc treatment has been shown to shorten the length of the rhinovirus colds when taken as a proper dose by adults. The treatment seems to work when at least 75 milligrams of elemental zinc is taken within the first 24 hours of cold symptoms developing. Zinc has also been associated with faster resolution of nasal congestion, nasal drainage, and some sore throat, as well as improvement of cough, Dr. Buenosalido said. And again, I've seen pros and cons. They're saying, just because zinc has been effective with the rhinovirus, which is the virus that causes the common cold, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be effective with the coronavirus, which is a whole different virus altogether. But it might be helpful. Here's a quote from the article, from this particular article. A comprehensive review of 18 of these trials have found that the intake of zinc was associated with a reduction in the duration of patients' common cold symptoms, but not the severity. The chance of developing a cold, school absences, and antibiotic prescription rates were also lower in groups that took zinc, suggestion that it not only helps reduce the length of the cold, but also prevents it. So with all these things, the vitamin C, the vitamin D, and with the zinc, the best thing to do, I'm not a doctor, is to consult with a doctor as to what the proper dosage should be. If you should get sick or you sound a little bit sick, what you need to do. Again, consult with your doctor, again, as to the dosage between vitamin C and D and zinc. Also, I want to share this with you all. Is that back in February when the Diamond Princess cruise ship was situated off the coast of Japan and the people were there, they were quarantined, I came across this couple, David Abel and his wife, the British couple. It was the British media that began to interview them while they were being quarantined in the ship. So I began to follow them as the quarantine continued. And of course, at one point, it turns out both of them got the virus. And then later on, I found out that David got pneumonia. And I thought, oh boy, when he got the pneumonia, I thought, oh boy, probably he's going to die because he's older, he had diabetes, and I thought probably he's not going to make it. And then for a long time, I didn't hear anything at all. And then around March, mid-March or so, sure enough, there was David back again, giving one of his blogs, video blogs. And he wanted to take, he wanted to say, hey, I beat it. He was able to beat the virus. His wife also was able to beat the virus. And he said at one point when things got really bad, his oxygen levels were really low. And the doctors in Japan were telling him he needed to be placed on a ventilator. And he thought to himself, oh no. And he knew from his background, medical background, he knew that if most likely he was placed on a ventilator, then most likely he would die. He would not make it. So he thought to himself, I don't want to be placed on a ventilator because that's not going to be good for me. So he thought to himself, well, what can I do to improve my oxygen levels? What can I do to my lungs to help them to bring in more oxygen in the midst of this pneumonia? He came across this video on YouTube, technique developed by a guy by the name of Gary Craig. And it's a 5-minute video clip. And in fact, I'm going to share with you the links of this video in my YouTube description of my video, so you can see this for yourself. So he began to do these exercises on a daily basis. Sure enough, after a few days or so, his oxygen levels went up. And then he eventually started getting better. And then he was able to fully recover, 100% fully recover, and he was able to go back home to England with his wife. And so I thought that this is absolutely useful and maybe even essential for you to know. So again, you'll see the link on the description of this video, and you can see how this technique and these breathing techniques are done. The last thing I want to share with you is this. One of my high school friends, Crystal, shared this with me through Facebook Messenger. And I also want to share with you what these two ladies had to say.
A quick demonstration on what to do at home, like if you start to feel the mucus build up in your chest. One of my tips was hot water or hot tea, just to kind of keep mucus down. But ever so often throughout the day, try to do something that we call CPT therapy, which is chest physiotherapy. What it does is it helps drains the lungs and mobilize things. So it's really easy. You can do this at home. I would do this on my kids a couple times a day if I was you guys, even if they're well, just to kind of make sure that no mucus is building up. So this is what you do. Okay. So we literally have beds that do this, but you can do, and we both are COVID negative, so I can touch it for now. This is what you can do. Just take your hands and just pat up and down their back. Actually feels pretty good. She said it feels good. All right, again, that is pretty much called chest physiotherapy. Basically, it breaks up mucus in your lungs, it mobilizes and drains the lungs. So along with you drinking tea is what I prefer, tea or hot water, drinking something warm just to keep the mucus down, do the chest physiotherapy. For those of you guys who did not see it, we're gonna do it one more time. And you basically take your child or take whoever, have somebody do it on you, and just break up that mucus. All right, and that's basically what we're doing on all our COVID-19 patients. That is part of the biggest problem, is having that mucus on the chest and that, trying to mobilize and get all of that out along with suctioning. But you can do this at home as well if you start to feel the mucus break up, okay? Say bye to Nurse Meg. Bye. Peace out.
So again, I would follow the suggestion of those two nurses in case you start feeling mucus in your lungs. Technique that you can use, that you can do at your home with someone else who's going to help you with that, and hopefully loosen some of the mucus that might be building up in your lungs. So that wraps it up. Okay, so please, please, please take these suggestions and this discussion seriously. Stay safe, and again, stay home. Don't go out there. God bless you all. Bye-bye.